retrograde, if you're a Mercury retrograde baby, this is the time where I'm going to tell you, keep moving forward. Move like you have never moved before in your life. Move quickly. Move fast. Have a sense of, I need to get this done. You have such good luck. If you were born during Mercury retrograde, it's the opposite of what everybody else is experiencing. Hello, everyone. I'm Christine, and welcome to the Astro CEO Podcast, a podcast for all astropreneurs dedicated to taking your business to the next level using the power of human design, astrology, numerology, manifestation techniques, and more. You can connect with me online at theastroceo.com. The American financier J.P. Morgan said it best, and I quote, "Anyone can be a millionaire, but to become a billionaire, you need an astrologer." All right, astropreneurs, if you're ready, let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, astropreneurs, welcome back to this week's episode of the Astro CEO Podcast. So we are going to jump right in and talk about Mercury retrograde. So as an astrologer, I really think that the planet Mercury is so misunderstood, and especially during the period of Mercury retrograde. You'll see it everywhere. Everybody's like, it's Mercury retrograde. It's bad. Everything's going to be screwed up. Let's just talk about this from an astrological standpoint. So let me give you my professional opinion about Mercury retrograde. So I think it's interesting let's just start at the beginning here. I think it's really interesting that most people don't even know. Most people don't even look up at the sky, and just look at the star formations and the planets that are visible to the naked eye. I mean, we are so disconnected sometimes, and I'm speaking for just, some of you. I think it's really sad that really nobody looks at the sky anymore. And there's so much to unpack there. And let's just talk about the topic of this week is Mercury retrograde. But before we jump into Mercury retrograde, I think it's kind of sad that there are some people that don't even know that the Earth rotates around the sun. They don't even pay attention to the planets that are out there, that are in our solar system, that we are so connected to, and that can play an important part of what we do from day to day. I believe that as an astrologer, that everything has a pattern. You have a pattern. And the study of astrology is really like we are analysts. We study patterns. And I think it's very fascinating that, astrology has been around for thousands and thousands of years. If you travel to Egypt, you will see, ancient astrological symbols among, their artifacts that they have. And inside the pyramids, you will see astrological symbols. That's how long astrology has been around, and that's how long people have been studying astrology, thousands of years before Jesus was even born. I think it's interesting. It's pretty fascinating that, if for some of you that didn't know this, if you ever go to Grand Central Station in New York, and if you look up at the ceiling, there is a celestial ceiling. There's images of the zodiac inside Grand Central Station, and it features the 12 zodiac constellations. So again, how many times have you been in Grand Central Station and never took the time to look up and see these images of the zodiac, this amazing celestial ceiling that is there inside Grand Central Station? I just think it's awesome. It just brings a smile to my face. So there are a lot of celebrities that use astrology, and we're going to talk about some of those. So Republican Nancy Reagan used an astrologer. She was known for that. She also delved into numerology, which I thought was pretty interesting. She actually changed the address of where they live because I think it was, if memory serves me right, it was 666. So yeah, she actually changed the address, but she hired a professional astrologer to help her and her husband out. These are famous Republicans, Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan, who used astrologers. I always love the quote, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And that was from J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan also used an astrologer as well. Some of the other celebrities that used astrologers is President Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, Angelina Jolie, Jennifer Lopez. Albert Einstein actually studied astrology and used astrologers. Benjamin Franklin studied astrology. Shirley MacLaine, Madonna, Napoleon, and Princess Diana. Also, that famous singer Sting uses a professional astrologer. And I just love it. I love it that that people are open to this. I think the popularity of astrology has really made a huge comeback, starting around the 1970s, 1980s. And now with computers and programs, which normally, it took a long time back in the day to actually do a chart for somebody because we would have to do it by hand and mathematically calculate everything. But now with modern computers and programs, we can instantly just plug in somebody's birth date and take a look at their celestial roadmap. We take a look at, when we look at your astrology chart, we look at the day that you were born, where you were born. That's really important. It's important because we need to see what was happening in the sky at that position. If you're born in New York City, you're going to have a different view of the sky versus if you were born in Hong Kong, even though it was on the same day. So knowing where you were born and the time you were born so we can get a celestial snapshot. That is your natal birth chart. That is very important when we're looking at somebody's astrological chart. And I just want to mention too that some of the great scientists, the great physicists like Galileo and Sir Isaac Newton were astrologers. And for some of you, you may not even know this either, but in order to obtain a medical license to practice medicine, this was years ago, you had to know how to read somebody's astrology chart. That was a requirement. Most people don't know that. And there are astrologers that only study health and well-being by using astrology. So very, very fascinating. So again, I believe that everybody has a life pattern. They have like a DNA blueprint written into their astrological chart. And if you'd never had an astrology reading, oh my gosh, it's time to get one. It's time for you to have somebody look at your chart and see what's going on, see what your benefits are, what you're good at, what you are brought in this world to do, and what are your strengths and your weaknesses. Okay, so let's talk about that. So normally when I do an astrology reading for somebody and I pull up their chart, one of the things that I really like to look at is Mercury retrograde. And the way that you can easily notice that when you pull up your chart, you'll see the symbol for Mercury. Mercury kind of looks like, when you're looking at the chart, it looks like a little person from outer space on the chart with the antennas sticking up on both sides. That's an easy way to remember, hey, if I'm looking at my chart, this is what it looks like. It's got the little antennas on top. Now, if you see what's called an RX, which stands for retrograde, if you see a symbol, a giant R with a small X, next to the planet Mercury in your chart, it means that you were born during Mercury retrograde. It is one of the first things that I love to look at because that can tell me a lot. And we're going to dive in really deep and talk about Mercury retrograde. And I want to stop this chatter that's going on out there where everybody thinks that the sky is falling, Mercury retrograde is bad, we're all in doomsday. And it's really not that at all. Mercury, when they say it's in a retrograded state, what it means is that when we look up in the sky, It looks like, and it's totally an optical illusion, but it looks like the planet Mercury is moving in reverse from our position here on Earth. And we all know, based on science, that planets don't all of a sudden stop and go in reverse. It's an optical illusion. And so when planets look like they are in a reverse position, we call that, as astrologers, we call it retrograde. So that's what we're going to talk about. Retrograde is a time period when we want to focus on all the REs. So we want to retreat, we want to redo, we want to retake, we want to RE, so rest. All the letters or all the words that start with RE are kind of like your prescription. It's what you want to follow when Mercury is in retrograde. It's time to take your hands off the steering wheel. It's time to take your foot off the pedal and just sort of sit back and take a look at what's going on in your personal life and in your business. It's a good time to reassess and figure out what is working and what isn't working. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick little preview. We have a lot going on in the month of October, November, and December coming up, all astrologically and based on the numbers, based on numerology. We have some busy things that are happening, very impactful things. We have an eclipse coming up. Jupiter is getting ready to change signs. So we have some things that are, what else is happening? Oh, Saturn's going direct on October 10th. So we have a lot of things that are going on that I think this would be a really good time to just step back, reassess, and really take a look at your life, take a look at your business, see what is working and what's not working, and make the necessary adjustments, because you want to be ready for what is coming in October, November, and December. And now is a good time to just sort of sit back and reassess. That is my recommendation for you guys. All right, so let's talk about Mercury retrograde. And one of the things that I really wanted to talk about in depth is what happens if you're born during Mercury retrograde. This is where I get excited. This is kind of one of the first things that I look at in somebody's chart is I want to see if you are born during Mercury retrograde. And like I said, if you pull up your astrological chart, there's a quick and easy way to determine that. It's the RX right next to the Mercury symbol in your chart. Remember, the Mercury symbol is the one that looks like it has an antenna. That is the symbol for Mercury. Now, if you see a little giant R with a small X next to it, it means that you're born during Mercury retrograde. This is a good thing, and I want to talk about this so that you will have a complete understanding of what is going on. When you were born during Mercury retrograde, there's a couple of things as astrologers, this is what we tend to see, is that number one, you sometimes have difficulty communicating clearly with others. For those of you that are born during Mercury retrograde, what happens a lot is that you're pulling in information into your brain, but you're also analyzing it at the same time. So there's a lot going on inside the brain, inside your mental capacity. You are bringing information in, you're dissecting it, you're making it better. And you're trying to absorb what type of information is coming in. So there is a lot happening inside the brain of somebody that is born during Mercury retrograde. So that is why in some instances, people that are born during Mercury retrograde have a really difficult time communicating clearly with others. Also, if you are born with Mercury retrograde in your chart, you tend to be very shy as a child. But something happens around your 20s where you sort of step out of your shell and you come to light. Also, you can tend to be very creative. Oh my gosh. So people that are born during Mercury retrograde are very, very creative. They'll take information into their brain. They'll process that information and they'll turn around and they'll present it back to the world and they'll make it 10 times better. They'll make it easier to understand for the global population. That's what's happening in the brain of somebody that is born during Mercury retrograde. Okay. Another thing that happens is they can be insecure about how they're perceived by others. Okay. So just something to keep in mind. Now, because they're processing information in a different way, there is pure brilliance about them. These people, and I want to share with you real quick who I'm talking about now. I'm just giving you a couple of names here of famous celebrities that are born during Mercury retrograde. Madonna, Prince, Lady Gaga, Hillary Clinton, and Steve Jobs are just some of the celebrities that are born during Mercury retrograde. So if you can just kind of put that picture in your mind of Madonna, Prince, who was just this brilliant musician and songwriter. Lady Gaga, same thing. She's a genius and just, oh my gosh, she's so talented. You have Steve Jobs, who actually was just brilliant. There is pure brilliance about the people that are born during Mercury retrograde. Like I said, they have the ability to take information in differently. They reprocess this information and they make it easier for people to understand. They make it the information accessible so that the global world can benefit from that. These people also have the ability to alter the course of history. Wow. Okay, I'm going to say that again. These are the people that have the ability to alter the course of history. So just imagine, for all you entrepreneurs out there, you have this genius idea, you have this product or service that you want to sell, and you know that this is a special product or service. Well, how amazing would it be to have a professional astrologer look at your chart and tell you, you know what, you have the ability to alter the course of history for all time. And imagine, if you knew that, how differently would you show up in your business? How differently? I mean, just think about that for a second. Think about that. If you were to have your chart read by a professional astrologer, which is what I do, if you were to have your chart read and I were to tell you, Susie Q, whatever your name is, you have the ability to alter the course of history for all mankind. Imagine how differently you would show up in your business. Imagine how differently you would wake up in the morning. Imagine how differently you would think about your current situation. So whatever pain points you're experiencing right now, and I know as entrepreneurs, we experience a lot of them. There's a lot going on. If you're an entrepreneur, that means that if you're inside an MLM, if you have your own brick and mortar, or if you have an online business, or you have a product or service that you're selling, as entrepreneurs, we go through a lot. There is a lot going on from a day-to-day basis. But and I understand that pain. I get it. So this is why it is so important to break through all the minutia and to really look at, if I were to tell you, oh my gosh, you have the ability to alter the course of history, how would you show up differently? This is why it's so powerful, I believe. It is so powerful to use astrology in your business. Astrology is just one tool. I'm also a numerologist. I also study human design. I will look at your human design chart as well and tell you what is happening and what is not happening in your chart. Just recently, last week, I did a human design chart reading for a client of mine, and this answered so many questions for her. And it was my pleasure to do this. I get excited when I get to tell people, hey, you have this gift and you have this gift and this gift. This is what can cut right to the core of whatever your pain points are. Let's just say you're in a slump. Your product isn't selling. Nobody's listening to your podcast. Nobody's paying attention to your Instagram. Okay, we need to take a look at what is happening inside your chart, both your astrological chart, your human design chart, and your numerology blueprint. And by doing that, it really could change. Just knowing what you're good at, what you're not good at, how you're supposed to operate on a day-to-day basis, when you're supposed to take breaks. I mean, these are game changers that can help propel you to the next level in your business. And that's why I think it's so vitally important to have your chart read. It is the first thing. So if you come to me, that is the first thing we're going to look at. I'm going to look at all of that. I need to look at your human design. I need to look at your numerology, and I need to look at your astrology chart to see what the heck is going on. And I think walking away from an astrology reading, walking away knowing what your strengths and your weaknesses are, knowing how far you need to push, when you need to pull back. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about pulling back. Let's go back to Mercury retrograde for just a second here. When you are a person that is born during Mercury retrograde, this is the one time when Mercury retrograde rolls around, which, okay, let me just give you the dates. We are currently in Mercury retrograde. It started on September 27th, 2021. It goes all the way till October 19th of 2021. This is a time that if you were born during Mercury retrograde, this is when you actually should be moving forward. This is when things get easier. This is when you feel alive again. Okay, this is not a time to sit back and retreat. Okay, so listen to me very clearly. If you are not a Mercury retrograde baby, it is best to step back and retreat a little bit, review what's happening. Take a step back, take a break, take a day off, take your foot off the pedal, take your hands off the steering wheel. Now, if you were born during Mercury retrograde, if you're a Mercury retrograde baby, this is the time where I'm going to tell you, keep moving forward. Move like you have never moved before in your life. Move quickly, move fast. Have a sense of, I need to get this done. You have such good luck. If you were born during Mercury retrograde, it's the opposite of what everybody else is experiencing. So move forward, move with confidence. Launch your big idea, launch your big presentation. This is a time when you're going to have really good luck. I want you to move forward. All right, so let's talk about some of the other transits that are coming our way. This is why I'm saying, guys, if you are not a Mercury retrograde baby, it's time to take a step back, review, reassess everything that's going on, because we have some major planetary activity that's coming our way. Jupiter is going to be coming out of retrograde next month in October, right around the full moon. Saturn is also going direct on the 10th. Okay, so let me just step back for just a second here. When I talk about some of these planets like Saturn, Jupiter's, these are like the big heavy hitters, okay? When I talk about the big heavy hitters, this is when you want to pay attention. They're going through some astrological transits that we need to pay attention to, that could cause some sort of disruption. So that's why I said these are big heavy hitters that are changing, what they're doing. And so that's why I'm saying to kind of rest up now, because we have a lot going on. We also have the new moon coming up on October 6th, and we have an eclipse that is coming our way. So the eclipse is coming in, I believe it's November. Yes, we have a lunar eclipse happening on November 19th. And ironically, let's get my notes together here. This is a very powerful event. Eclipses always are. I call them the ultimate disruptors when eclipses show up. But the interesting thing about this one, it's a lunar eclipse. It's coming on November 19th, and it's right around President Biden's birthday. So we'll talk a little bit about that more when we inch closer to that, but I think that is going to be very, very interesting. Eclipses always are the disruptors. I call them the ultimate disruptors. They come in and they create change. And once they change things, things never go back to the way that they were. That is the interesting thing about eclipses. So that is coming up in November. So we have some big things that are happening. Also, Jupiter will be changing signs in December. And based on the numbers, based on numerology, December is going to be a crazy month. So we have a lot that's happening towards the end of the year. So I'm recommending for everybody just to slow down a little bit right now. Take advantage of this time when we're in Mercury retrograde. Slow down a little bit. really step back and take a look at your business or take a look at your situation. Except for if you are a Mercury retrograde baby, I suggest keep moving forward. Okay. This is a lucky period for you. All right, my friends, that's all I got. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Astro CEO, and I'll catch you guys next week. Take care. All right, Astropreneurs, stop everything. Okay, so at the time of this recording, we are in the middle of Mercury retrograde, and my phone in the last 20 minutes has been ringing off the hook. All right, everybody out there. Yes, we're in Mercury retrograde. And yes, just a couple of hours ago, Facebook went down, Instagram went down, the WhatsApp went down, and I know a lot of you have no internet right now. So this is typical Mercury retrograde shenanigans going on. So just roll with the punches. You'll be fine. Everybody's fine. It's okay if we don't have Facebook for just a little bit. They are working on it. All right. I just had to interject that because yes, crazy things happen during Mercury retrograde, and you just have to laugh. You just have to roll with the punches. It's interesting because I was going to teach a class tonight on Facebook, and this morning I woke up and I'm like, you know what? I think I need to reschedule this. So it's my instincts kicking in. So I put out a quick notice that I was going to reschedule the class that I'm going to teach tonight. And I rescheduled it for later in the month. And then bam, an hour later, Facebook went down. So anyway, interesting. It's just typical Mercury retrograde shenanigans. It's what happens during Mercury retrograde. So be safe, my friends. All is well. This only lasts for a short period of time, and I will catch you next week on the Astro CEO podcast. Take care. All right, Astropreneurs, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you like what you've heard, please check out the other episodes of the Astro CEO podcast. You can always find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on my website, which is theastroceo.com. Until next time.